students. Today we are going to discuss about risk mitigation, monitoring and management. It is also called as RMMM model. Now, risk. Let us understand what is risk first. Risk is the likelihood of failure or error. A risk is inevitable. It is existing in all factors of software development. But we have to understand what are the chances of the risk occurring and how it will have an impact on the project. What will be the consequence of the project on the project if the risk occurs to be true. If the impact is negligible, then we can neglect the risk. But if it is having a critical or a catastrophic effect, the risk has to be monitored and managed well. There are several phases in risk management, which includes risk identification, risk assessment, risk control. But before that, let us understand what is risk mitigation. Risk mitigation is a problem avoidance activity. If the impact of the risk is not huge, it can be neglected, or we can assume that the risk has never taken place. Risk monitoring. Monitoring means keeping a track on the project activity to see what is happening and whether the risk is going to be implemented, or what are the chances of the risk happening in near future as the project development lifecycle progresses. Risk monitoring is done with three primary objectives: to assess whether the predicted risk do in fact occur, whether they occur or not; to ensure that risk aversion steps defined for the project are being properly applied; to collect information that can be used for further or future risk analysis. So monitoring is to see whether the risk is going to occur or not, to avoid the risk or to reduce the impact of the risk, and to collect information pertaining to a risk in a project for future analysis. Another task of risk monitoring is an attempt to identify the cause of the risk or the root source from where the risk has occurred. If it is a technical risk, it could be addressed in several ways, like training the team members or increasing the capacity of the servers or the technical availability in terms of hardware, software, and other resources. An effective strategy must contain risk avoidance, monitoring, management, and contingency planning. Risk management. It consists of risk identification, risk assessment, and risk control. Identification means we have to find out what are the types of risk and whether it can occur or not. The types of risk could be technical risk, capital risk, business risk, or due to government policies. Identify and inventory assets. What are the assets which are there, which are pertaining to the risk? Classify and prioritize those assets. Identify and prioritize the threats in the risk. After that, there is risk assessment, which is identify the vulnerabilities within the software and the threats associated with it. Identify and qualify the asset exposure. Risk control. In order to control the risk, there are strategies which has to be selected. We have to justify the control method and implement and monitor those controls. Now, the software management team can take two out of, like, he can select one of the two strategies, that it can be a proactive risk management strategy, or it could be the reactive risk strategy. In proactive risk strategy, it means that the developer or the team is going to work or try to avoid the risk before it occurs. And reactive strategy means the team members wait for the risk to become true, and after that they'll apply the contingency plan. For that, the steps taken are: meet the current staff to determine the causes for the risk. It could be poor working conditions, low pay, a competitive job market. Mitigate those causes that are under control before the project starts. Once the project commences, assume turnover will occur and develop techniques to ensure continuity when project leave. Organize project teams so that information about each development activity is widely dispersed. Define documentation standards and establish mechanisms to be sure that the documents are developed in a timely manner. Conduct peer reviews. Assign backup staff member for every critical technologist, and As the project proceeds, risk monitoring activity also commences. This is about RMMM model. Thank you.